Good afternoon. I have to say that my heart is just full being here with you today. I spent the morning learning and listening, and just really am overjoyed and grateful. Thank you for the invitation, Sharon, and the Safe Ireland team to join you. And I want to say to my siblings, to my sister survivors who shared this morning, thank you. I see you, I hear you, I am you, and we are strong together. My work is focused on the rights and the experiences of migrant women, largely in the United States and in Latin America. Today, I want to share with you the story of a woman who I had the honor to know and represent. Her name was Luz. We never met in person. In fact, we only spoke on the phone. And the first time I had the call with her, her voice said it all. She sounded tired. It had been too much. It had all been so much. And she didn't need to tell me because I already knew. As a survivor myself and as someone who's worked with migrant women and alongside migrant women for so many years, I already knew what Luz was going to tell me had happened to her while in migration and when she arrived in the United States. I met Luz in 2011. She was one of the 214 million world's migrants who traveled to find opportunities, to flee violence, to seek out an opportunity to live safely. She was one of half of the world's migrants at that time seeking out similar opportunities. When Luz traveled to the United States from Mexico, she met someone who told her that he would help her with safe passage. And he told her how much it would cost for him to help her cross the border. And when she crossed the border, he doubled the price. Luz couldn't pay the price that he was asking, and so instead he sold her. Luz became one of the many victims of human trafficking. She was sold to a business owner and traveled hundreds of miles away from the border where she first entered. The dreams that she had for safety, security, and prosperity quickly turned to nightmares. When I met Luz, she'd escaped her situation. She'd found the help of a social worker in Indiana who tried to help her find services that she needed to cope with the trauma, to find justice, to understand her rights, to understand her options, and that led her to me. And even though we never met in person and only spoke on the phone, Luz and I had a closeness that many of you in this room understand, who are survivors and who work with survivors. It was a bond. It's difficult to break. And so you can imagine how, after months of working with Luz and trying to find all the different services that could help her in a state that was far away from where I was living at the time, you can imagine how I felt to learn that Luz had been murdered. I tell you this story because oftentimes as justice seekers, as human rights defenders, as organizers, we talk about the campaigns that we've won. We talk about the many cases and all of the justice that we've achieved. But we don't often talk about the heartbreak in the work, or the cases that couldn't be solved, or the laws that didn't protect people, or the options that weren't there. For me, Luz's story represents one of those situations. And for me and my work representing thousands of migrant women who come to the United States and seek of justice, hers is just one story. And hers is just one story, like that of millions of migrants right this very moment, women and children who fled their countries and who are looking for safety. You see, there's this understanding, I think, in popular culture about why people migrate. People talk in some places about individuals who go to different countries because they want to steal jobs. And they talk about the fact that people are leaving their countries only because they want to find wealth. The reality is that there are many migrants who leave their countries when they never really wanted to leave at all. My experience with migrant women is that oftentimes, if it were up to them, they would have stayed. But they couldn't. They had no option but to leave. And so despite the popular narrative about migrants who leave their countries to take opportunities, to take jobs, to take resources, the reality is that if things were different, if there were resources, if there was investment, if there was safety, many of these individuals might not flee their countries. But there are certain, thank you. But there are certain times in which that is the case and they must leave. And as I think about my work and I think about Luce and I think about all that is yet to be done for migrant women, I understand that in order for us to meet the needs of individuals like Luce, we must change the narrative around why people leave. We must work together to figure out what the solutions are, what kind of care can we offer, and what kind of neighbors are we and will we be? Here in Ireland, from what I've read, there's been a positive experience with migration. I recently spoke at the United Nations at the General Assembly at an event where we were talking about the Global Compact on safe, regular, and orderly migration. And there, a representative from your government spoke and talked about why it's necessary to have a compact like that one to ensure that when migrants like Luce enter countries like yours and like mine, that they know what to expect and that they have hope that they'll receive care. And when they find themselves in nightmare situations like Luce did, that their story will possibly end differently. You see, we are on the cusp of a great change in this world. For the first time in the history of the world, the Global Compact has been agreed upon by almost every nation. And in December, world leaders, including leaders from Ireland, will meet in Morocco to sign this Global Compact. And throughout the compact, there was care to ensure that the needs and priorities of migrant women were taken into consideration across the 23 different sections of that compact. And in addition to that, there was much thought given to the needs of survivors and victims of human trafficking, like Luce. When I spoke to the world leaders several weeks ago, I told them that it is incumbent upon them to ensure that what has been written doesn't look good only on paper. It is up to them to have the courage and the vision to carry out what has been written in this Global Compact so that there are norms in place, so that migrants, no matter where they are from, no matter what they are fleeing, will know what to expect when they arrive in countries like ours. And when I challenged them, I meant it. Because what we write down in paper and codify in laws and in compacts only means so much as they are enforced and applied. And just as I mean that, I mean this. In order for that compact to have any meaning, in order for that compact to meaningfully impact the lives of the migrants that will cross your borders and the borders of the United States and of nations around this world, it isn't only are world leaders who have a responsibility to ensure that migrants are valued, welcomed, treated with respect, care, and dignity, including the most vulnerable, the victims and survivors of domestic violence, sexual violence, child abuse, and human trafficking. In order for the situation of our world's migrants to change, we must all, every single one of us in this room, recognize our responsibility to reach out, to embrace, to have compassion, to show empathy. I accepted the invitation to speak here today because my vision for migrant women isn't a vision only for migrant women in the United States. And my vision for who deserves to live in safety and who deserves to work with dignity and security isn't only a vision for migrant women in my country. I came here because I share a vision that you have, which is that for us to be able to make things better, we have to commit to making things better for everyone, no matter where they come from, no matter what cards they've been dealt in their life, no matter what they're fleeing, no matter how different they are from us. When we talk about a safe world, it must be a safe world for all of us. When we talk about one safe world, it must be one safe world for all of us. For anyone who says that we will build a wall, or that we will create laws that are tough that will keep people out, or that we will find ways to deter people from leaving their countries, I say this: you're absolutely wrong. Because if someone is faced with a decision about whether to flee their nation, to flee their home, to flee their city, to flee their town, because they might not live if they don't, for the possibility, for the mere chance of surviving, I guarantee you that they will move, they will leave. They will do all that they can to survive, and they will do all that they can to protect their children and their loved ones if they have them. And who can blame them? And wouldn't you too? So my friends, my siblings, I'm here to say to you that this struggle for migrant women's rights, safety, and security, it belongs to all of us. And the responsibility to ensure that there is care, that there are resources, that there is investment, it's on all of us, not just on the leaders who govern our nations. And I ask you, my friends, to join me in this movement, because in order for this compact that will be signed in December to have any meaning, it is going to take each and every one of us here and each and every one that you know outside this room to ensure that the compact means more than just words on paper. If we don't do this, luz, which means light in Spanish, women like luz, will be the stories that we tell, that we continue to tell. And I'm here because luz has been a guiding light to me in my work, even though it broke my heart and continues to break my heart. Luz guides me in my work, and I give you the gift of knowing her just briefly because she was incredible. She wanted the best in life, and we weren't able to give her the best. But we can do better, and we will do better if we do it together. Thank you.